What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Bush and Notorious Fantasy coming at you with a live fantasy football mock draft. Today, we're going to be using Underdog Fantasy, specifically the puppy draft, which is basically a smaller version of the Best Ball Mania contest. If you guys want a chance to practice for your home leagues, win some money in best ball drafts, you can use Fantasy Stock Exchange and Underdog Fantasy. We have a code with them, code FSE at sign up. And you guys can get $25 free on top of your minimum $10 deposit to play with. And you also get both of our draft guides, which are dropping tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern time for free. So 2 draft guides, $25 on top of your $10 deposit, and you get all that value, and you can practice for your drafts, and you can potentially win $1 million with that Best Ball Mania bonus entry or doing some of the puppy drafts. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen, enter this draft. Nick, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. This is the first time I've been on someone else's channel in a while, so it was quite weird not doing the intro myself, but it is what it is.
Facts. All right. So entering the puppy. Hopefully you can join up in time. Yeah, we're waiting for 10 people here. This is like janky as hell right now. I don't know why this is doing this.
It's okay. I'm in the puppy right now too.
Am I tripping right now?
You're definitely tripping. You're definitely sharing the wrong screen. That's why.
Oh, true.
There you go.
There we go. All right. So we're waiting for 7 people. We got some mans in the chat. We got Luke Kaser, the classic TCK Potter right there. We got Nick. What's up, Nick? He was the first one in last time, I think, too, when I did a live stream the other day. Leonardo, hey, let's go. Yeah, Leonardo's probably, shout out to him. He's probably the most active person in our entire Discord. From what I've seen, I think in our Discord, we have a bunch of bots set up so that you like level up the more active you are. And I'm pretty sure he's the highest level, higher than even me and Danny are. So that's pretty impressive. So this is filling up pretty quickly. We can see waiting for 4 people. If any of you guys out there in the comments right now are on Underdog and you want to join this, you can go ahead and do so. You probably do so really quickly, though. There's only 3 people left to join in this particular draft. Hopefully I get a high pick. We did a bunch of these late last night. And I was picking like middle of the draft, end of the draft, and every single one. And I was always around other like members of the call that we were in. And I kept getting sniped all the time, specifically by Flet. So hopefully I get a spot that's high up in the draft and you get a low spot. So we're not near each other.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yesterday we had 3 back-to-back, me, Flet, and Danny, right? Or was that you? Were you?
No, yeah. When I got off, you guys did another one, and you guys were 1, 2, and 3, and I'm assuming there was a lot of sniping going on with that one.
Yeah, no, there was a whole lot of sniping, but it was a fun time regardless.
Yeah,
we got true Lucas. I am an alpha male.
Lucas, an alpha male. Nice. All right. So if you guys have any questions, there's 14 of you in here. You guys can fire away. We got some time before the draft fills up. We're waiting on one person, and it's gonna be like 30 seconds before the draft actually starts. So do you see what's trending on Twitter today? I saw Saquon posted a quads pick. Got to remember or remind everybody who the quad father is.
Yeah. What a great picture that always is. The one of Mike Davis, though, truly broke the internet like a month ago because no one knew he had that big of legs. What a beauty.
Right. Same with Gio Bernard's, too, because everyone was like, Gio Bernard, look at this old fuck. He's got some legs to his game, too. But yeah, either way, Saquon had to remind everybody. Him and AJ Dillon are the guys with the true quads out there.
That's
okay.
True.
So draft is filling up. It looks like we are waiting on our spots. Hopefully, I am picking 4th. Okay.
Oh, man, I got 9. You hate to see that.
Infinity Fantasy. I wonder if that's like another channel making a video right now. Just low key could be. Yeah. When I saw fantasy there, I was like, oh shit, like you're picking right behind me, but it looks like you're at 9th. So we got some space in between us. At least we're not going to be sniping each other too hard.
Is Davis in this mock with us?
Who?
Davis is in the mock with us. Davis Maddock.
Oh shit. Yeah, he's a big name for sure. Yeah, Davis Maddox in the mock with us. He's picking, looks like at 110.
That's hilarious.
Kurt Bauer says, I am joining a tight end premium superflex dynasty startup with 2 points per tight end reception. How high should Kelsey be drafted in this format? So my philosophy on Kelsey and dynasty has always been, I will just let somebody else draft him. I know how good he's going to be for the next couple of years. But something about drafting a 31-year-old tight end that high in a draft just makes me a little bit nervous. Like, I know he's going to be phenomenal, right? But when you draft him, you're not going to get the same kind of trade value in return that Kelsey is going to provide you. So you're basically hamstringing yourself into competing right now as soon as you draft Travis Kelce. And in that kind of format, I'd imagine he's going in the first round.
Yeah, I would think so too.
Like in a 2 tight end premium, this dude's going to be the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy, most likely in terms of that kind of format. So to me, that screams he's a first round pick. And I would imagine Waller and Kittle are probably borderline first round picks, with Pitts being like a early second round pick as well. So in that kind of format, the tight ends are going to be flying off the board like crazy. So that there's pretty much a big reason why I don't play in tight end premium. And that's kind of why, is just because it really overvalues those top end guys. I'm on the board right now at the 104. And currently, Saquon Barkley is my 4th ranked player. Or he's actually my 3rd ranked player, but Henry is my 4th ranked player. He's already off the board. So I normally would go with Saquon Barkley here, but because I'm in so many of these drafts, I'm going to mix up some of my exposure a little bit. And I'm going to take Alvin Kamara, because I almost never get him in here. I don't know why. I just don't ever get him in these kind of drafts. So Alvin Kamara, I'll go with him at the 104. I think it's pretty much him and Barkley to me for that decision. And they're all kind of in the same tier. So I'll mix up my exposure a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. I haven't gotten Saquon once yet on here. And what is it with Diggs going at the top 5 in all of these drafts?
I've seen him go like consistently in the top 8 in like every single draft too.
All right. Yeah. And then Tyreek after him. So is Devontae Adams just not going to be a first round pick anymore? Is that what we're looking at here?
I mean, with the uncertainty of Rodgers, it makes sense. I still think even without Rodgers, Devontae Adams is a locked in top 3 receiver for me. So if you want to take Diggs and Hill over Devontae Adams without Aaron Rodgers, let's just assume that's the case right now. I understand it, but outside of like with Hopkins and Calvin Ridley and AJ Brown, I still wouldn't take them over Devontae Adams, even if Jordan Love is the quarterback personally. AJ Nardi says, would you trade Debo and a late 2022 first for T Higgins? And yes, I absolutely would make that trade. I went over and gave my thoughts on Debo Samuel a couple weeks ago on the wide receivers 25 through 50 show that I did a couple Mondays ago. And I'm really nervous about Debo Samuel, man. The guy has never been able to stay healthy, not only in his NFL career thus far, but going back to his days in college. I think Brandon Ayuk is a true stud alpha wide receiver. And then, of course, we have George Kittle coming back. The type of role that Debo Samuel plays is a gadget role in the NFL, and that's never really been a role that's equated to a lot of fantasy production. He would need a lot of targets to be very productive from a fantasy perspective. So a guy like T Higgins, who I think is going to be a very good number 2 receiver, 1B receiver in the Bengals offense for a quarterback that I think is a very good option. I really like T Higgins in that situation. If you don't want to give up that much potentially, if you could just get him for the late 2022 first, then I would prefer that. But if you have to give up Debo as well, I don't mind that trade.
Yeah, I like that trade as well, if I'm being honest with you. At the beginning, I kind of was a bit more uncertain, but I am a big fan of T. Higgins. I think that just the fact that the Bengals are going to be throwing the ball so many times this year, and I would assume for the future as well, it takes a while to build back a defense. So I'm pretty confident in T. Higgins for the long run.
Yeah, I would imagine the Bengals are basically going to be the AFC version of the Cowboys and just throwing the ball all over the yard, basically. So looks like our boy Davis went with Cam Akers, DeAndre Hopkins at the turn. Who did you end up selecting? Sorry, I was talking during your pick. I
went with Saquon and Aaron Jones.
Nice. Okay, that's a pretty good start. Speaking of the Green Bay Packers, I personally think this is too far for Devontae Adams. 2.9. I think if Aaron Rodgers does come back, let's say for whatever reason he shows up at training camp, or they resolve their differences, it was like a contract thing or something like that, and they make him the highest paid quarterback in the league. Devontae Adams at the 2.9, like this guy should be going in the top 5 if Aaron Rodgers is there. I think that's probably about where I would pick him. If we know Aaron Rodgers is going to start week 1 and the rest of the season at quarterback, I think you can really make an argument between Saquon, Alvin Kamara, Derrick Henry in that 3 to 6 range of the draft with Devontae Adams.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what are the odds you think that he is back? I would say it's probably like 50-50 right now that Rodgers will be the quarterback of the
I would say it's probably leaning a little bit more towards that he's not back, like 60-40, 70-30 maybe. I think that's probably about what we're talking about, but we haven't really heard anything like definitive yet. It's kind of just been hearsay and speculation. We haven't heard Rodgers like come out on Twitter and like make a formal like farewell to the Packers or anything. Like nothing's really happened yet other than like reports. So for me, I'm waiting until we get to some training camp, into some preseason games, and I'm still going to take advantage of that uncertainty factor with Devontae Adams, because even if the worst case scenario happens, Aaron Rodgers is traded to the Broncos, Jordan Love's the quarterback, I still think the 2.9 for Devontae Adams is appropriate value. And if you're getting a guy at his floor, basically, then you're always going to make up value in that case. And Joseph says, is there any argument for taking Chase over Najee in a dynasty rookie draft with the 101 in a half PPR league? So I personally would take Najee Harris in 99% of cases. If you don't need a running back, I would trade the pick, not take Jamar Chase. I would go to the 102 owner, see if they need a running back, and offer them, the 101 and try and get like a young receiver in return or something like that, and just get the 102 and take Chase there. That's what I would do personally.
Yeah, so would I. I feel like you're just losing so much value if you take Chase there, because then the second person is just going to be so happy that they got Najee Harris when they probably assumed you were going to take him. So you should try to go ahead and finagle a trade there if possible.
Yeah, and I'm caught between a couple guys here, but I think I'm going to take George Kittle. I don't usually get George Kittle in these drafts because he usually goes at the back of the second round. But at the 3-4 here, I think that's enough value that I can stomach the Ayuk factor that I have, that because I really believe in Ayuk this year. I think George Kittle is firmly behind the other two tight ends for me in my rankings because of the target competition that Waller is dealing with in Las Vegas. I think the guy is just set up for way too much volume, and he's pretty much equally the talent as a receiver as George Kittle. So I don't think it's like a huge discrepancy. Like George Kittle's a way better player or anything like that. Plus we have Kittle dealing with a rookie quarterback. Maybe they go a little bit more run heavy because of what Trey Lance can provide with his legs. So I have a little bit more concerns about Kittle than the other top two tight ends, but at the 3-4, I still like that value.
You can almost make a case that the top three tight ends are all in a tier of their own. Like Kelsey is in his own tier, and then Waller, and then Kittle.
I totally agree. I actually do. I kind of look at it that way as well, because like nobody's touching Kelsey, at least this year, in terms of the productivity, the touchdown upside, the target volume that he gets. The target volume is there equivalent to Kelsey for Darren Waller, but you don't have the offensive output with the Raiders that you have with the Chiefs, obviously, and the touchdown ceiling that you have with Kelsey. So yeah, I agree. I think Waller, in terms of a target share, is just too far ahead of Kittle for me to have them in like the same tier.
Yeah. I'm up right now, and I'm between Allen Robinson, Robert Woods, or Julio Jones. I like all three of these guys, but I know we talked about this yesterday, obviously not on a live stream, but you don't seem as confident in Allen Robinson as I seem to feel about him. I'm very confident in Allen Robinson. I feel like he's been very safe for the last bunch of years, and I think that he's going to really step it up here once Justin Fields steps on the field.
Yeah. And my big argument, and I wrote about this in our draft guide because I did, kind of shit on Allen Robinson a little bit in that write-up, but my big concern with Justin Fields is the fact that the Bears were one of the most pass-heavy teams in the league last year, and Allen Robinson garnered like 150, 155 targets or something like that, which ranked among the top 3 receivers in the league. But when you look at who was around him in terms of targets, they were all like wide receiver 1, 2, or 3 in fantasy that year. And yeah, they have better quarterbacks, but I believe they still have better quarterbacks, right? Like I know Justin Fields is an exciting young prospect, but he's not going to be better than Josh Allen, who's throwing to Stephon Diggs. He's not going to be better than Aaron Rodgers, presumably, who's throwing to Devontae Adams. And I think the team is going to go more run heavy, similar to what I said about Trey Lance when Justin Fields takes over, because Justin Fields is such a mobile quarterback. And we have there's splits that you can see. When Darnell Mooney and Cole Kmet started getting full-time roles, Allen Robinson's targets went from 11 per game to 8.5 per game. And Allen Robinson on 135 targets, to me, is not worth a mid-third round pick. If you can get him in the 4th round around guys like DJ Moore and Chris Godwin, I'm okay with him there. But in the range that you're taking him, and I would say you even got him at somewhat of a value, but when you're taking him over guys like Amari Cooper and Terry McLaurin, that's when I'm not really willing to pull the trigger on him.
Yeah, that makes sense. Right now, I'm looking at wide receiver again here at my pick between Kupp and Chase. And I'm just going to take the upside of Jamar Chase. I think Cooper Kupp's a fine wide receiver, but I just feel like Chase has more upside with how pass heavy this team is going to be. Like we kind of talked about a little bit earlier. You said they're like the Cowboys of the AFC, and I honestly like that comparison a lot when we were talking about T. Higgins. So I'm pretty confident in Jamar Chase this year, but I wouldn't be surprised if T. Higgins outscored him, if I'm being honest with you. If you were to say at the 4-4, you'd rather take T. Higgins, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't shock me either, especially when you're talking about like early season, points. In a redraft league, for example, you need to get off to a hot start. In a best ball format, especially like this one, where it's a tournament style, that end of the season is how you win the league, right? And if Jamar Chase is, doing what Justin Jefferson did towards the end of the season, then he's going to be a screaming value in these drafts, even though he's going as early as he is, like late 4th round, early 5th round. Because if Jefferson was going there last year, then he still would have been a great value. And I'll just answer some of these questions here. AJ says, does it make a difference if I'm a contender in that trade? So the Debo for T. Higgins kind of trade. I would say if you're a rebuilding team, I would rather have the T. Higgins side, even though, you want to have draft capital for a rebuilding team. And I absolutely cannot believe that DeAndre Swift is on the board right now at this point in the draft. I know sorry, I'll just answer this question in a second, but I know there's some hesitancy about DeAndre Swift because of the Jamal Williams situation, because of what they said so far. But at the 4-9, like that, I had concerns with DeAndre Swift when we were taking this guy at the back of the second round. In the late fourth round, I will gladly take that risk. So AJ says, does it make a difference if he's a contender or a rebuilder in that trade? I think T. Higgins is one of the premier rebuilding assets to have on your team. So I don't really think it makes a difference either way. Yes, you want the draft capital as a rebuilder, but you also need the young asset if you're a contender. And it sounds like you are a contender because you said a late 2022 first.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It seems like, what is your feeling on Miles Sanders? That's what I was going to ask you, because I am not confident at all in Miles Sanders, but DeAndre Swift, I like far more than him, and they go around a similar range here at the 4-9 and the 4-11. What do you think about Sanders? Because I'm completely off of Miles Sanders. I've never been on the Miles Sanders train, but there's no way I'm drafting him this year.
Yeah, so with Sanders, I was on him last year prior to when Brandon Brooks tore his Achilles, and then Sanders had his own hamstring injury that he was dealing with. Then I shied away from him, but before all that happened, when he looked like he was going to be thrust into a big workload, I was in on Miles Sanders. And I do think we're overestimating to some degree some of the pieces that they've added. Like, are we really that scared of Kerryon Johnson and Jordan Howard and Kenneth Gainwell? Like, we probably a little bit more scared of them than we should be. And if you're in the 5th round and Miles Sanders is on the board, I definitely don't mind that as a pick. But anywhere probably before that, like the mid 4th is really when I would start to consider him. Earlier in the offseason, he was going in like the early 3rd round. And like that, at that point, I was like, no, like absolutely not. I'm not taking him that high. But in the 5th round, I think he's worth that kind of draft capital.
That makes sense. Personally, I'd rather wait like one round to just take Mike Davis or something, because I feel way more confident about Mike Davis than Miles Sanders personally.
Right. And usually you can get Jacobs around later. I know he kind of went semi-close in this draft, but normally you can get him around later, which I would prefer Jacobs around later to him. I'm going to take Brandon Ayuk here because I absolutely love Brandon Ayuk. My team is kind of like, if you guys can see it there, I got Kamara, Swift, Adams, Ayuk, and Kittle. So I got kind of a balanced approach. I'm not really going too heavy at any kind of position right now. I really like the value I've gotten on some of these players, especially Adams and Swift. So I think I'm going to be able to build out my wide receiver core in the coming rounds. We know that these rounds are really ripe for a lot of productive wide receivers that are usually going undervalued. So I don't mind my makeup of my team here. And I can't pronounce your name for the life of me, so I'm not even going to try. But would you trade JT and Hines for Godwin, Hunt, a early 2022 first and an early 22 second? Been debating this trade for 3 days. So the one thing I would caution you to say is, why do you know that that's an early 2022 first? Because if you're trading for that pick, assuming it's an early pick and it's not an early pick, then you're going to lose value on that. So unless you know for sure, like this guy's starting Jake Luton at quarterback, then I wouldn't assume that certain picks are going to be at certain portions of the draft. I would just treat everything as like a mid-round pick if you can, in terms of a value perspective. But to answer your question, no, I absolutely would not take that deal, because I think Jonathan Taylor alone is worth Godwin, Hunt, and a 2022 first. That's the way I look at Jonathan Taylor, at least in Dynasty. He personally, he's my RB3 overall. He's, a top 5 overall startup pick for me. And I think a lot of people are really overestimating how much pass catching upside really affects his output, because it hasn't affected Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb in recent years.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on that. Jonathan Taylor's a guy that's pretty... some people seem to be really out on Jonathan Taylor. I feel like he's not necessarily a polarizing player, right? Because he's going to go in the first round of every draft. But it seems like people have very different opinions on him.
Yeah, I totally agree. I see people pretty much every day on Twitter tweeting something like, you're too low on Jonathan Taylor, or you're not high enough on Jonathan Taylor. And then I see the opposite side of the spectrum where I just moved Jonathan Taylor to my RB17 in redraft. I'm like, okay, let's settle down here. You don't have to have like a hot take about Jonathan Taylor. You can like him equally and just like accept that. It seems like you're either way too in on Jonathan Taylor or you're way too out, and everyone's just trying to one up each other in either direction. So
yeah, at this pick right now, this is honestly the worst spot I've ever been in, because I hate a majority of these players. There's no way I'm drafting Odell at this spot, so I'm just going to reach and pick Devontae Smith, the Slim Reaper, even though I'm not very confident in a 6th round pick on him. But at the point where we're sitting here, I already have 3 running backs. I'm not going to take like Javonte Williams or something to reach, so I'd rather just wait and just pick Devontae Smith and hope that he ends up splashing like I think he could.
Right. Yeah. I think Smith is a good pick, in this range of the draft. And like you said, like, when are you going to pick Odell Beckham over him? Like, we know exactly what we're getting out of Odell Beckham. He's going to be overrated consistently. And I think people are starting to catch on to the fact that Odell's not the same Odell he used to be. But I still think going in the 6th round, like, I don't know, like, I would need to get him around the range where you're getting guys like Will Fuller for me to actually buy into where Odell's currently going, because still a run heavy offense. You still have Jarvis Landry who's going to get some targets there. The offense runs through those running backs, and they're going to contribute in the passing game a little bit too. And Baker Mayfield has not really proven himself quite yet to support multiple options like that. So DJ Chark, I'm a little bit upset, just got picked there. He was actually the guy I was eyeing. I'm going to take Jerry Jeudy with this next pick, because between him and Sutton, I actually prefer Jeudy straight up. So I think Teddy Bridgewater is going to start for this team. And then when you look at the tendencies of the two quarterbacks, Teddy Bridgewater is much more of a targets a separating type of wide receivers. And Courtland Sutton is not a guy who's going to win with consistent route running. He's a guy that you need a little bit of a Ben Roethlisberger, Jameis Winston, Ryan Fitzpatrick type of quarterback to have be productive. So I think Teddy Bridgewater is really going to favor Jerry Jeudy as a target if he's the starting quarterback. And I think he's the better quarterback. So I'm just kind of projecting that he will start. So at the 6-7 turn, I really like Jerry Jeudy's opportunity to be kind of what Deontay Johnson was for us last year.
Yeah, I like Jerry Jeudy a lot. I'm not as confident as you seem to be in the fact that Teddy is going to be the quarterback. I think they should roll out Locke and see if they have anything in him. Give him a couple games. Then if not, obviously you just switch to Teddy.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's probably what's going to happen. I just think that Teddy is going to start the majority of the games for the team, whether it's he starts right away or Locke falls flat on his face early in the season. So looking at the board right now, I'm not overly excited about the running back position, unfortunately, because I was eyeing Kareem Hunt with one of my picks, but I'm going to go over to wide receiver, and I'm going to get a piece of this Cowboys offense. I'm going to take Michael Gallup here. One of probably the most prototypical better and best ball picks there, and Nick just dropped out for some reason, but I'll get him back in a second. But I think Michael Gallup is one of those guys that you can just ticket for better and best ball, because it's going to be so hard to choose when to start this guy because of his ability to outproduce CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper consistently is going to be very difficult for him. So the best case scenario for Michael Gallup is that you get 6 or 7 spike weeks throughout the season. But from a redraft perspective, I'm not necessarily in on the guy because I don't think we're ever going to know when to start him. But because it's a best ball format, I actually really do like Michael Gallup in this high-powered Cowboys offense.
Yeah, I completely agree. I like Gallup a lot. Not in redraft at all, though. There's no way I'm going to be drafting him because I think most weeks he's going to be the one that's like the third target on the team, not really doing too much. But he is going to have those huge games when they're in these barn-burning matchups against other teams because their defense is just so bad. So I'm going to go with Laviska at this pick. I don't love him, but at the end of the day, I think there's a pretty good chance that you flip a coin and he ends up as maybe the number one target on the Jaguars team. Maybe he's not. Maybe Chark is. I'm kind of fading
maybe
Chark
Marvin
right now.
Jones
maybe Marvin Jones is too. Yeah, but I'm willing to take the shot in the 7th round. I mean, do I really want Antonio Brown in the 7th round? I feel like that's just way too high, in my opinion.
Yeah, in terms of the Jaguars offense, the guy I've been most in on is Chark, but I do think Shenault, the way that they're talking about Shenault, that the fact that they're not going to use him as like a gadget receiver, they want him to be like a true alpha receiver or whatever. He does prototype as a better alpha receiver than Chark does because he has, the side, like he's a bigger receiver than Chark is. He's more thick. He's better after the catch. He had a better college profile. He had a better rookie season than what we saw to DJ Chark. A lot of analytics people are really in on the side of Shenault versus Chark. They're heavily leaning Shenault on that side. The reason I like Chark more is because when you think about the role that Chark has played in the Jaguars offense, can we really blame him for being inconsistent? He has Jake Luton, Mike Glennon, and Gardner Minshew as his quarterback, feeding him downfield targets and red zone targets. They're bad quarterbacks. If Trevor Lawrence comes into the league and is Trevor Lawrence, like what we assume he can do, then those high-value targets that Chark has been getting for the last 2 years suddenly become more consistent and more efficient than they've been since he's been, a relevant player.
Yeah, definitely. With my next pick, I went with Brandon Cooks. I don't know what your feeling is on Brandon Cooks, but I think, honestly, in the 8th round, there's no way this guy isn't the number one wide receiver on the team in targets for Houston. So I just feel like that's a value in itself, even if the quarterback isn't, very good, because who knows who the quarterback's going to be at this point.
Another guy that I much prefer in best ball compared to redraft, because I mean, how many times are you going to go into matchups with the Houston Texans and you're going to feel comfortable starting a Houston Texans player, right? Because in most games, they're going to be throwing a lot because they're going to be down in games. But at the same time, how often are they going to generate like first downs and consistent offense, right? Because it's just going to be a really dumpster fire type of offense without Deshaun Watson there. So Cooks was actually really good last year. Obviously, that was with Deshaun Watson, but
yeah,
I still think he's going to be the number one target in that offense. Like Nico Collins is and Randall Cobb are really his biggest target competition. I think at least Cooks can get open, and I think that's what Tyrod, I'm assuming, is going to be the starter, is going to favor, because we saw him actually use a guy like Mike Williams really early in that one game that he played with the Chargers last year, and they kind of play similar roles.
Yeah, and plus he's going in the 8th round, so are you even really expecting to be starting him most weeks? Probably not. So as like a bench player with probably top 20 upside, I would say, I think that's a fine pick.
Yeah, and especially in best ball too, we know he's capable of getting behind a defense and stuff like that. I'm sure that Cooks is going to have 5, 6, 7 games where he's going to make your best ball lineup, right? And that's more than you can say for some of these, like Darnell Mooney, for example. Like, yeah, we like his upside, but there's a very good chance he only has like 2 fantasy relevant games all season. And Cooks could definitely have 6, 7, 8, 9 of them.
Yeah, 100%. I like Mooney a lot, though, but I think it's going to take Fields to be the quarterback for him to really excel, because I'm not sure Andy Dalton really has it in him to hit Darnell Mooney. I mean, Trubisky or Foles couldn't do it last year. So
exactly, yeah. So Jared says, in my redraft keeper league, if Kittle is gone before the 3rd round, is it too early to take Pitts? I'll listen to the answer after work. Just wanted to get that in. Thanks. So yeah, Jared goes back and listens to all of our live streams, so I definitely appreciate that. But
what a boss.
I think it's too early to take Pitts. And I know it's a keeper league, so the 3rd round is probably more like the 4th or 5th round. But from a redraft perspective, I need to know who's on the board when I'm taking Kyle Pitts. Because if there's a lot of, questionable players on the board, then I'm okay taking the risk. But if we're talking about taking Kyle Pitts over some consistent, reliable options, then I get into like a little bit of a hesitancy with that. I can't take Kyle Pitts over guys like Robert Woods, for example.
Yeah.
I just grabbed Ronald Jones as my 4th running back there. I got Kamara, Swift, Harris, and Ronald Jones. That's probably it for me at running back, at least maybe until like the last 2 rounds of the drafts. I typically, for those of you guys that are new to Underdog, maybe you just used our code and you haven't really done a lot of drafts or something like that. The typical way to optimize your lineup in terms of these tournaments is to build smaller running back cores. And it sounds counterintuitive because in redraft leagues, we generally, like running backs. And we want to have a lot of them in case of injury. But in best ball, and especially in this kind of tournament, you basically have to assume that your early picks are going to hit, because it's a huge tournament. If your early picks don't hit, you weren't going to win the money anyway. And building a smaller running back core is the way to do it, because how often is, let's say you take Darrell Henderson in the 12th round. How often is Darrell Henderson going to get into your lineup over Alvin Kamara and DeAndre Swift, even if Cam Akers gets injured, right? Like, it's probably not going to happen very often. And again, Cam Akers would have to probably get injured in that case for that to happen. So that's why taking a bunch of running backs in these formats are usually not the way to go.
Yeah, I agree on that. Definitely. I mean, normally, like you said, in a redraft, I could draft 3 running backs in a row and it wouldn't bother me at all at the beginning of the draft. But here, I feel like that's kind of a bit more of a crazy strategy, more out there strategy.
Right. Usually I like to build an 8 deep, 9 deep wide receiver core and look to fill my flex spot, the one flex spot that you have in the starting lineup in Underdog, with a wide receiver week in and week out, and have my running back core make up my RB1 and RB2 slot, because for the most part, you got to bank on Kamara and Swift, in my case, being like 85% of your weeks at running back, or else you're probably not going to win the money anyway. And then Harris and Rojo, they can supplement some of your flex position or your RB2 slot in case Swift gets, has a bad week or whatever.
Yeah, that's like the same thing with my team. I drafted Saquon and Aaron Jones early, and then Mike Davis is the only other running back I have. So if either of those guys were to go down, then Mike Davis has to fill that role. And if not, I got to just hope whoever I draft in like the 11th, 12th round ends up working out for me.
Right. And I have a feeling Davis Maddox might snipe your next pick. But if I were you, I'd be looking at someone like James Conner, who can supplement in a couple weeks here and there for running back as well, and then probably be done with the position as well. That's generally what I like to do. I like to get 2 early guys, and I like to get 2 more guys between the 5th and the 10th round, because those guys are generally going to have good weeks. You just never know when. And again, this is best ball. We don't need to know when to start Ronald Jones. He's going to have big weeks. We just don't know when they're going to come, which is why, from a redraft perspective, I'm probably not going to be that in on the Bucs backfield in general. But in best ball, they're going to be one of the best offenses in the league. So they're going to have big weeks at running back.
Yeah, that's why I'm kind of between Connor and Leonard Fournette here. I mean, Fournette in the 10th round seems like the better value in my opinion.
I would actually take Fournette over Connor. I didn't even see him there.
I also like Melvin Gordon for some reason. I feel like he's going to have some games that, like, for real fantasy, real redraft fantasy, Melvin Gordon and, in my opinion, Javonte Williams will be complete washes, because I think they're going to really split the carries, but I think there could be games where Melvin Gordon really goes off or Javonte Williams. But the same thing goes with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette played really good in the playoffs. Ronald Jones was much better during the season. Leonard Fournette almost got cut from the team, if you guys don't remember last year.
Yeah.
Like Bruce Arians was talking about how he does. I don't even remember what it was. Maybe it was like
I remember. I followed the
something
team very closely. In week 14, when they made him inactive against the Vikings, it was because Leonard Fournette went to Bruce Arians and complained about his role. He wanted more touches, basically, because he's Leonard Fournette. He was a high school recruit. He was a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. He's used to carrying the load for the Jaguars, for whatever team he's been on. Yeah. And Bruce Arians is like, hey, young buck, sit down, and I got to humble you, and I got to sit you for a game and, help you learn the lesson of being part of a team. And then after that point, Leonard Fournette had a much better attitude, and they were able to incorporate him more into the offense. But people who think this is going to be Leonard Fournette's backfield are mistaken. It's going to be near a 50-50 split. So from a redraft perspective, I'm not that excited about it. And I cannot believe that I know there's uncertainty with this situation, but again, we're in a tournament format. And if this situation works out, the fact that I can get Aaron Rodgers at the end of the 10th round and Devontae Adams at the end of the 2nd round, that is a stack that will be, a top 5 pick and a 5th round quarterback if this situation were to clear up. So that kind of value would really put me in the driver's seat to win a tournament like this if this situation does clear up. And of course, if it doesn't clear up, then I wasn't going to win the money anyway because I torched that investment. So taking risks like that is something that I really like to do, especially with uncertain situations like the Packers.
Yeah, on the other best ball website, I'm no free ads out here, so I won't even say their name. I have multiple teams with Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, and Devontae Adams. And if that all ends up working out, then I feel very, very confident in those teams.
Yep. And so Nelson says, if you cannot trade away these players in Dynasty and you have to drop one, which one would it be? Mike Williams, Deebo Samuel, Devontae Parker, and then also which one of these running backs? So to me, the answer is clearly Devontae Parker there. Yeah. I don't really want to drop any of those players because I think they will contribute to some degree. But if you have to drop one, I'm assuming you're in a bit of a shallower Dynasty league. Devontae Parker would definitely be the guy I would drop there. And then to me, this is a very simple LaMichael Pirines, my answer for the next question, because I just think he's straight up trash. Elijah Mitchell, I have some belief in, and we never know with Kyle Shanahan how the running back core is going to shake out there. So I wouldn't drop him. And same goes for Josh Kelly. I think he will have some kind of role for the Chargers backfield this year. So on the board right now, and I'm going to take Cole Beasley. I know he's falling in drafts right now because of his Twitter personality, but Cole Beasley, he profiles as a guy that's not going to have spike weeks because he's a slot receiver. But when you go back and look at this guy's game logs, he had like 7 games of double-digit targets. And that's hard to find at this point in the draft at wide receiver. So I'll take the risk that he doesn't opt out of the season or whatever the hell he's threatening to do. And if all the things go right on this team for my thing, I have a good chance of winning some money on this one because I have a lot of risky players. But if everything breaks right, which is basically what you need in a tournament like this, then I should be in a good position.
Yeah, Cole Beasley is one of those guys that I have on my Dynasty roster that literally made the lineup so many times. I thought he would never even enter my lineup at all last year. That's just how crazy he went in Buffalo last year. Yeah,
he was like, I know Hayden Winks and Josh Norris on their channel. You guys go check that out on Underdog Fantasy's YouTube channel. They talked about sticky stats for wide receivers. And it was like a great listen. If you guys are interested in doing your own fantasy research, I highly suggest you go listen to that. But basically what they talked about was yards per route run. I'm sure you're familiar with the stat. It's very predictive in terms of how good wide receivers actually are at football. But what they did was they broke it down even further and looked by personnel grouping. And when you break down yards per route run in 11 personnel, when there's more wide receivers on the field, that actually basically was more predictive in terms of who was a good receiver and who wasn't. Because if you're running 1 receiver or 2 receiver sets and your yards per route run is higher, that makes sense because there's less competition at wide receiver for you to compete with for targets. In 3 and 4 wide receiver sets, if your yards per route run is high, that means you're really good at commanding targets. And Cole Beasley ranked 6th in the NFL.
Yeah, I completely agree. Shout out to Aaron in the chat who said he watches both of our channels. Huge shout out to Mr. Aaron.
Huge. Yeah. AJ Nardi says Zeke late 2022 first for Hopkins and a mid 2022 second, trying to keep you guys busy. Yeah. I hate trading away running backs in Dynasty, especially ones that are going to get workloads like Zeke. I guess if you're rebuilding or contending, it doesn't really matter because you guys are both contending assets. I will lean the side of Zeke in the first just because I think they're the most valuable assets in the deal. Because as much as I think Hopkins might be better straight fantasy points this year than Zeke, because I really do believe in Hopkins this year, the fact that you're getting a first with Zeke, it definitely tips the scale on his side for me.
Yeah, there's no way I'm looking to trade away a running back in Dynasty, especially one that literally should be top 5 this year, potentially this year, and for the future. I mean, what is the odds that Zeke loses his job in the next 4 years? Probably very low, at least in my
I'm
opinion.
more of like a 2-year window on Zeke. That's basically like what I'm looking to project for him. But like I said, I'm not worried about Tony Pollard. My concern with Zeke is his workload. That like how much work he's gotten in his career. That is my concern with Zeke. It has nothing to do with his age because he's still like 26. Has nothing to do with Tony Pollard. Has nothing to do with the offense. It's all basically, is this guy going to hold up with this kind of workload? Because we have historical data to tell us that workload is actually the thing that determines running back fall down, not age.
Yeah, Tony Pollard's a guy I actually feel bad for because he seems like he'd be really good if he was on just some other team.
Yeah, I definitely understand that too. Okay, I'm looking at my team right now. It looks like my running backs are pretty set. I have pretty solid wide receivers so far. I'm looking to see if I can stack any quarterbacks but like it looks like all the running or the wide receivers I have are for teams with like really good quarterbacks. So I don't have a chance of getting Josh Allen or Dak Prescott at this point in the draft. I do have Ayuk and Kittle, which makes me sad that I didn't get Trey Lance because I wasn't paying attention close enough. But John Brown is a guy at this point in the draft that I think is severely undervalued because I know, but you will not find a person higher on Henry Ruggs than me. But John Brown has a chance to step right into Nelson Aguilar's role. The role that Nelson Aguilar played last year, John Brown can easily take over that role and do it probably better than Aguilar did it last year. And Aguilar was a top 25 receiver last year in points per game, in finish, whatever the case is. So if Ruggs and Bryan Edwards can't take another step in their career, which definitely could happen because they didn't show it really last year, then John Brown could easily be the second target in this offense behind Waller.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not anywhere near as close to you on Henry Ruggs, so I really do like John Brown a lot. I think he's a huge steal in even if he goes in the 11th round, I feel very confident that he could be the wide receiver one there.
Yeah, and even if Ruggs does take a step forward, I think in a best ball format, John Brown should have some big weeks. And if Ruggs, becomes a 100 target guy, then Brown's going to still have 4 or 5 big games this season. That'll contribute to your lineup. So I'm going to rip through some of these questions here. Ben says Kyle Pitts and Dwayne Eskridge or Javonte Williams and Jalen Waddle. 0.5 PPR, no tight end premium. I'll take the side of Javonte Williams there because I think he's the most valuable asset in that deal in a non-tight end premium. I know Kyle Pitts is a super prospect, but the difference between Jalen Waddle and Dwayne Eskridge is massive. And Javonte Williams, Kyle Pitts to me is a lot closer than maybe some people would have it ranked. I think Javonte Williams has a chance to come out right away and be a stud running back. And then obviously going forward, he should be, our borderline RB1 for the length of his rookie contract, in my opinion.
Yeah, I do not like Williams this year at all, but I think next year, once Gordon's gone, then he's going to be free reign on that offense. So I agree with you. I think Javonte Williams and Waddle is definitely the way to go because what can you even project Dwayne Eskridge to do for the future?
Yeah, probably not very much. Lockett and Metcalf, right? Like it's going to be very hard for him to do much of anything, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to take Robert Tonyan here because he's falling at this point in the draft in the 13th round. I don't really like Robert Tonyan. Like I don't think he's going to be a target of mine in drafts. But in the 13th round, I already have Adams and Aaron Rodgers, right? So that fits a nice stack for me. I think that's a value in general. Currently, Tonyan goes normally at 136 overall. You can see in the ADP there, and I got him at 148. So I got a value on a guy that stacks my quarterback. So I really like that pick for me. Bryson says, "Hey man, I love your content." I don't know who you're talking to here because we are on separate channels, but I'm going to take the compliment for both of us. And Aaron says, awesome. I watch both of your channels. Yep. Appreciate that. Victor says Chark and Shenault look like a 1A, 1B situation. Yeah. I think Shenault will probably out target Chark, but I think Chark will have more valuable targets. So if you're chasing volume, I would say most people are going to prefer Shenault, but if you're chasing big plays, ceiling weeks, and you can deal with some inconsistency, then Chark is probably your guy in that situation.
Yeah, I wouldn't even be surprised if Marvin Jones was the number one guy in targets, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, see, he's the wild card, right? We got to see what his role is going to be in that offense, I think, to know what we're getting, especially in preseason games and in training camp. If we hear a lot of buzz about Marvin Jones, that's probably going to deter me from drafting any of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, my team right now, I have Lawrence, I have Shenault, and I have Marvin Jones. So I got two out of the 3. So hopefully, Chark isn't the guy in my case, I guess.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I mean, Chark has a history of injury too. So that's probably the best case scenario for a team like yours where you built and faded Chark basically. And I think if you're in a tournament and you're looking to stack players, that's a good way to get an advantage. Is a lot of people are going to stack the same players, right? Because I have Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams, like that's a very obvious stack. But if If Adams were to get hurt and I stacked like some other receivers on the team, that's a very differentiated version of the Packers stack, right? So that can give you an advantage to some degree as well. But I mean, don't overthink it with Adams and Rodgers if that's the stack you're going for. It's just way too free. Anyway, would you sell Pittman in Dynasty? When and for how much? I absolutely would sell Pittman in Dynasty. And it's not because I don't believe in Michael Pittman. It's because of what the data tells us about players that don't perform in their rookie seasons. And say what you want about Pittman's situation. Oh, yeah, this, that, and the other thing. Paris Campbell went down week 1. He had the corpse of T.Y. Hilton to compete with for targets. He really didn't have any tight end to compete with for targets. Like Nyheim Hines was the next biggest competition for targets on the team. Michael Pittman, if he was Justin Jefferson, if he was Brandon Ayuk, if he was T. Higgins, he would have produced last year. Say what you want about Brandon Ayuk producing with everybody injured. At least
All right. So he has disappeared. I'm sure he'll be back in like 2 seconds. So I'll just keep on talking. I'll answer your question.
Yes,
I
that was random.
Okay, keep going on what you were saying.
Basically, what I said was with Brandon Ayuk, he produced, and basically people like want to knock him for producing when everybody was out, but at least he did it. And Michael Pittman had the opportunity because everyone was out, and he still didn't do it, which makes me a little bit nervous about Pittman going forward. So if you can get pretty good value with the assumption that the person you're trading for thinks he's the number 1 receiver for the Indianapolis Colts, you can probably get more than you might have even invested. You might have invested an early 2nd round pick in Michael Pittman. You might be able to get early 2nd round value in return after already seeing him somewhat face plant his rookie season.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Pittman, so that's just how I feel about it.
Yeah.
Who did you just take? Because I'm not even on my screen right now.
I just took De'Ami Brown. So he's a guy that I think with the Washington offense, I think he's going to be a guy that's involved. I don't think he's going to have much redraft relevance, but he's a deep threat type of receiver. He should have 4 or 5 big weeks throughout the season, so he can contribute to my lineup that way.
Yeah, I like De'Ami Brown a decent amount. What do you think about Curtis Samuel? Because a lot of people are taking him around like the 8-9 range. Are you confident in him? Or
I like him in best ball. Yeah, I like him in best ball. And in redraft, another guy that I think is going to be hard to figure out when to start. But in good matchups, I think he's going to be basically what he was last year. He was a flex position wide receiver. I think he finished like wide receiver 28 or something like that in fantasy. So that's probably about what we're talking about with Curtis Samuel in Washington. I don't think his role changes much. I don't think he gets a huge amount of targets or anything like that. I think he's 105, 110 target receiver like he was last year, and he's going to have some big weeks here and there. So in best ball, especially, I do like where he's going currently.
Yeah, I agree. What do you think about we'll just keep talking here unless there's any more questions.
There's a lot more questions that we kind of need to rip through here. So Aaron said 1 QB league. I don't know what question he said. He just said one. He said
his question's after that.
Oh, okay, I see. So I think Bryson says, I think the only reason John Brown isn't higher in ADP is due to the injury history. Other than that, the upside is definitely there. Yeah, I think that's probably warranted. But when you're getting that injury discount at the point in the draft that you're getting him, like he doesn't hurt you at all if he gets injured, right? If you get him for 5 weeks of the season, then he blows his knee out, then you got him for 5 weeks of the season in the 12th round. And he probably provided you wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 production in that time.
Yeah, I agree. I really like John Brown, and I think that at any point past the 10th round, I'm very excited to pull the trigger on him.
Another great pick for me. Like the fact that I've gotten the Packers stack just falling to me is pretty nice because Marquez Valdes-Scantling, Devontae Adams, Aaron Rodgers, Robert Tonyan. If that offense is what it was last year, and Aaron Rodgers comes back basically, then I pretty much have a monopoly on everybody that's there. So I really like that. If obviously this could fizzle out if Rodgers is gone. But in that case, if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Broncos, at least I have Jerry Jeudy stacked with him. So
yeah, that's true. I also like Amari Rodgers a lot late round as well.
Yeah, he's a guy I just wasn't very high on coming out of college. I just didn't think he was that good of a player personally. People wanted to give him the Debo treatment, because that's the type of athlete he is, but I just didn't think he was very refined. He wasn't, he didn't have good hands. I didn't think he really knew what he was doing outside of just being a big, running back style athlete out there. He kind of reminded me more of Cordero Patterson than he did of Deebo Samuel.
Tough scene. I just got absolutely sniped by this guy who took Gronk.
Yeah, that hurts.
I only have Irv Smith.
So Aaron says Lamar Jackson, Barkley, Gibson, Swift, McLaurin, Claypool, Chenault, Mooney, Kmet, Jonnu Smith. We keep 8, drop 8. I kept Barkley from IR and will give a 5th to keep Kmet. I have the 111, 207, 209, 210. Given the makeup of your team, it looks like you're pretty set at running back. And with your picks that you have, it doesn't look like you're really going to get a running back unless you can get Sermon or Carter at 207. So at that 111 pick, I would probably just go best player available and probably like Devontae Smith, Rashad Bateman type. And then at the 207, 209, and 210, again, best player available. You're probably looking more at wide receiver depth given the strength of this draft class. So if you can get like a Terrace Marshall, Rondell Moore, Nico Collins maybe at that 210 or something, or De'Ami Brown, those are kind of the players I'd be looking at for your team.
Yeah, I agree. I've never played in a league like this. This seems quite complicated, but I do understand where he's coming from. He also said that he's looking at Bateman or Zach Moss at the 111. I think Zach Moss would be a pretty good pick there, to be honest with you, because I think there's a pretty good chance, better than 50-50, that he's the lead back in Buffalo.
I like Zach Moss, but I couldn't stomach picking him over Bateman, personally.
Okay, that's fine.
So he said I would hold Bateman for future draft capital or one of the sophomore breakouts. So I'm not really sure what exactly that means, but I'm assuming he said I would hold them for one of the. Does that mean if you take Bateman, you have to give up Chenault or Mooney? Is that what he means? Because
I don't know.
I would keep Bateman and get rid of Mooney. As much as Mooney like showed a lot his rookie year, I would rather have Bateman by a mile, even if I have to get rid of Mooney.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm also very high on Bateman, so.
I'm not as high on Bateman, but I still think he's a fine pick. In this kind of a league, I think he's a fine pick there.
Yeah. So Mark says 12-team Superflex Dynasty tight end premium. Is Kittle in a 2022 second too much to pay for Pitts? Yes, it is too much to pay for Pitts. I would rather have Kittle than Pitts straight up right now. So
for this year, yeah, but for the future, I think Pitts will be better.
Sure, but we still haven't seen Pitts do it yet. There was a time when we thought OJ Howard and TJ Hawkins,
Evan Ingram,
good, obviously, but like we thought these guys were all going to be great prospects, and I understand that Pitts is a better prospect than all of those guys, but it is still the NFL draft, right? It's a crapshoot for a reason. I will take the sure thing in George Kittle, and he's still young. He's still going to be producing for a while. So outside of those top three tight ends, then I'll take Pitts. But if we're talking about those top three tight ends, I would still take them over Pitts.
Yes, Forrest, this is live.
Yes, this is live.
We're very live right now.
So I need another quarterback at this point in the draft because I just have Aaron Rodgers. I have to bank on the fact that Aaron Rodgers is going to start. Otherwise, I'm screwed anyway. So I'm going to take Derek Carr because I have John Brown. Get a little cheap stack there. And I think, at the very least, Derek Carr is going to start all of the games for his team and should produce some kind of thing. If Aaron Rodgers, let's say he holds out into the season, comes back week 4 or something, I should have Derek Carr for the first couple weeks there.
Yeah, I took Carson Wentz earlier because I don't even know. I just felt like I needed to draft 2 quarterbacks before it started hitting the fan, and it kind of did at this point in the draft. You're kind of just stuck with a guy like Zach Wilson. I took Jameis, so like that's just how it is back here.
True. Okay, so Aaron says looking at okay, we already answered that. Leonardo says what rookies going into the mid to late second round or later do you think could have a chance to produce this year? So Nico Collins is actually my number 1 owned player on Underdog drafts right now. And it's because he's going like the 18th round. But Nico Collins, because of the target, competition that's there, it's just Brandon Cooks really, right? And Brandon Cooks has, 78 concussions basically in his history. So there's a very good chance that Brandon Cooks could get injured. And Nico Collins as a raw rookie could be he gives me a little bit of Chase Claypool vibes, right? Because the same thing that we said about Chase Claypool coming into the league was, he's raw. He's going to need some time to develop. And then he came in right away and outproduced 2 already established receivers in his offense pretty much. So I definitely I really like Nico Collins late in drafts. I also like De'Ami Brown late in drafts too, because we've seen this coaching staff misuse Curtis Samuel in the past. Who's to say they won't do it again? And De'Ami Brown could definitely become the number 2 in that offense pretty quickly.
Yeah, I also like Javian Hawkins to potentially be the number 2 in Atlanta, but I don't really know. That's not really what is that going to give you in reality, unless Mike Davis gets hurt. So
I took another Green Bay Packer.
Oh my
God,
Alan
Lazard. So I'm just if Aaron Rodgers is back and the Green Bay Packers is the number 1 offense in the NFL, I pretty much have all of their production locked up on my team. So I don't mind that for sure. Okay, Bush brother Godwin to the Saints, make it happen. I would actually throw up if that happens. So. There's literally anywhere but the Saints. I don't know if Leonardo's a Bucks fan, but I can't stand the Saints. So if anybody former Buck goes to the Saints, I immediately don't like him except for Jameis Winston because he's so likable.
He's famous. That's why.
Yeah. What up, Journeyman? Is that Ryan Fitzpatrick in here? Redraft keeper league. Keep Aaron Jones in the 4th or Lamar Jackson in the 7th. Oof, that is tremendous value on both guys. So. Ugh, that's tough. I would probably keep Aaron Jones in the 4th because he is the running back and he is the more important position. But Lamar Jackson the 7th is also a great option there because I mean, Lamar Jackson's currently going in like the mid 5th round of drafts. I think he should be going in like the late 3rd, like where he was going last year.
Yeah, but I mean, Aaron Jones, if Rodgers is back, is a 1st round pick.
Right. And probably a top 8 lock.
Yeah, I have him as running back 6 right now, but that's my assumption is Rodgers is back.
Right. I have him at RB like 11 or 12, but I'm kind of just baking in the risk that if people are using my rankings right now to do underdog drafts, they have to bake in that risk of if Rodgers is going to be back or not. So if Aaron Jones has Rodgers for the whole season, he's going to be like my RB 5 or 6 behind the big guys. So I definitely think Aaron Jones is definitely a good pick in the 4th there, or to keeper in the 4th. Yes, this is live. Aaron Harrison says it's a 16-team league, no midseason draft capital during possible breakout this year. Next year, I already have 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. We draft first week of September. Yeah, you have a very, very complex format of a dynasty league. So I honestly would need like a full like session.
Need a chart or something.
Yeah, I would need some kind of like rule breakdown because it's pretty hard to understand what's even going on in your league. But yeah, like I said, if what I understand is correct, I would, if you have to drop one of those sophomore breakout wide receivers to take a guy like Bateman, I would do it personally, and it would be Mooney that I would drop. Leonardo says, I'm a Pats fan, but I love Godwin. I don't want him there. Yeah. So you understand the Tom Brady love and why I love him so much because you're a Pats fan. So I've really understood where Pats fans are coming from all these years after the Bucs won the Super Bowl this past year. I feel like taking another QB, and I feel like taking Mac Jones.
Yeah, I took a 3rd tight end, even though I don't normally do that. I mean, I'm not really ultra confident in Anthony Firkser as my tight end too. So I took Dan Arnold. I actually think Dan Arnold could be pretty good with Sam Darnold. They kind of have that cool name to name connection. So.
Right, and those guys are also going to have the, or at least Dan Arnold is going to have. He was a guy who scored 6-7 touchdowns last year. If he scores 6 or 7 touchdowns again this year, he's going to have 4 or 5 relevant weeks for fantasy. So. Again, best ball at this point in a best ball draft, you're looking for who can give me 4 or 5 weeks of starting level production. They don't have to be consistent. They don't have to do it all the time. I just need spike weeks basically. And that's kind of what I'm looking at with my next pick here, because as much as I don't like Ben Roethlisberger, I think he's probably the highest weekly ceiling option of the quarterbacks available right now, because we do know he has a history of throwing like 60 pass attempts in a week.
Yeah.
And if he does that, he's going to have like 400 passing yards, like probably 3 interceptions, but he'll probably throw like 4 touchdowns too. So I think that's where I'm going to go. I do need to protect my ass a little bit because I have Aaron Rodgers. Don't necessarily want to protect my ass, but I need to get guys that can supplement production in case Rodgers doesn't work out. Because if the rest of my team hits and Rodgers doesn't, then I might still have a chance to win some money. So got to protect it a little bit. We don't have a rookie draft, vets and rookie draft. Okay, so Mark says, great content on both channels. Thank you guys for your insight. Dynasty Decisions is awesome. Appreciate that, Mark. We're speaking of Dynasty Decisions, we're going to have an episode of that coming out for you guys tomorrow and probably again Saturday, because you guys keep coming with the submissions. We keep having to do them twice a week. So we're going to continue to have them twice a week until you guys come at us with less submissions, and then they'll probably go down to once a week and 0 times a week. So as long as you guys want us to keep doing it, we'll keep doing it because it's fun and easy content for us to make, and you guys seem to enjoy it a lot. So what's bigger than love? Because that's what I feel for Brady. Yeah, facts. Okay, so I just gonna go to completed. Okay, how am I gonna go to the one I just did? The puppy, is this the one I just did? Yes. Okay, so going over my team real quick, I'll just do this and then we'll wrap this up. Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Ben Roethlisberger. At quarterback, I got a pretty solid stack of running backs with Alvin Kamara, DeAndre Swift, Damian Harris, Ronald Jones. And then at wide receiver, I went pretty, Packers heavy with 3 of them. And then I got Ayuk, Jerry Jeudy, Michael Gallup, Cole Beasley, John Brown, De'Ami Brown to surround that. And I got Kittle and Tunyon as my tight end. So actually, overall, a pretty decent entry for me. I really like what I was able to do, especially with the Packers stack kind of just falling in my lap. I didn't plan on doing it when I took Adams, but it kind of just happened.
Yeah, I think your team was pretty good. So
yeah, if you could share your screen, you can go over it. If not, we can just head out of here because I know you said you got a meeting to get to. So if you guys enjoyed, as always, like, comment, subscribe to the channel if you're new. If you're here from Nick's content, subscribe to our channel. We produce a lot as well. If you're listening to us but you don't listen to Nick, go check out his work as well. I'll throw it in the description as soon as this video is over, and you can just search Notorious Fantasy on YouTube if you want to find it that way. So Nick, appreciate you coming on, and peace out, guys, and enjoy your Thursday.
See you guys later.